Hi, my name is Caelan Stokkermans. I'm a freelance artist at Caelan Stokkermans Arts and a contributing artist at Canticles. I'm here to give you a little bit of insight into my work through a Speedpaint and voiceover. I'd like to thank Canticles for having me here and for premiering this video at this con. So to start out, I create a quick sketch. I keep it very loose and just define the basic elements of the piece, such as the mountains, the ruins, and the river that's going to be winding through. Usually when I work on commissions, I do 4 to 10 quick thumbnail sketches. This gives me several concepts to work on. Usually the 4th or 5th draft is better than the 1st. For this speed paint, however, I'm only doing 1 sketch to save some time. So here you can see I'm just putting in some basic architecture, just loosely define the mountains, the river, the sky. It doesn't have to be super detailed, just as long as you get the basic idea down. So next up, after I'm happy with the sketch, I start blocking in the basic values and colors of the piece. I go from the foreground to the background using dark to light values to create depth. I wanted this piece to have golden and green tones to give it a verdant and sort of like divine feel. I block in the mountain range and the sky using a less saturated green and gold. Same thing with the river. I prefer to start my pieces with a duller color scheme to bring out those, and then bring the values out later on in the piece. I feel like this gives it a more realistic feel. So here I am just flushing out the sky, using some golden tones, defining where the light source is going to be, which actually will end up changing later on in the piece. Then next up, I take a photo of a rainforest valley and I blend it into the values I defined. I use photo bashing to help speed up my process and give my piece a realistic feel. I start putting in some more photos to define the pillars or the monoliths. I adjust the color tone so they fit the piece. Then I just blend them in, and then I start putting in I paint over it, and then I define the lighting, which I am now going to have from the go across the angle of the lighting to go across from the upper left hand side and shine across the 2 monoliths. I focus on detailing and defining the monoliths first, since they will be the focus of the painting. So usually, as I work, I flip the canvas back and forth continuously to give myself a different perspective on the piece. As I'm working, I also turn on and off the sketch and perspective layer. And then I do that to ensure the piece is consistent with the concept I sketched out, and the perspective is also still realistic. So you can see here, I am currently blocking in more stuff using the sketch and perspective layer on. I don't always stay completely true to my sketch as I work. Sometimes new ideas change the composition and we have happy accidents. Most of the time I stay zoomed out, as you can see, so I can see the piece as a whole and not get super caught up in the details. Here I am zooming in so I can just sort of see one part of the piece that I need to work on a little bit. Here I'm putting in, just trying out different shapes to the mountains. Here I added a waterfall and lake that I then later on actually decided to remove. It didn't fit with the composition and it looked a bit odd. So here I am putting it in. I try making it smaller a little bit later on, right here. But I ended up deleting it because it just looked odd. So here's another thing that I threw in that I then decided to take out because it didn't really fit with the composition. So then I merge all my layers onto one, and then I adjust the lighting using the curve tool. I don't usually do this because I like to have all the different layers to work on major projects. So here I'm adding some foreground elements to give the piece more depth. The photos I use in my work I usually take myself or use from common stock sites. Places like Pixabay, Adobe Stock, and Photobash are all great. I try to stay away from DeviantArt due to the overuse of stock images from that site. Plus it's gotten pretty weird over the last couple of years. Get some really weird stock from there. So whenever you actually do photo bashing or any of this, never use copyrighted photos or images taken straight from Google. I've seen a lot of artists do this and it's causing them a lot of problems, and it doesn't look good because like if a client sees that this is from Google, then they're gonna be like, what the heck, why aren't you doing original stuff? So I'm just defining some more of the foreground elements using some photo bashing. These images actually I got from Noah Bradley's stock image site, and some of them are also from my own collection. I try to take a lot of my own photos and use a lot of my own stuff in, because that way they're completely original and nobody else is going to be having them. But it's fine to use stock images as long as you also completely adjust them so that they don't look like the original, because other digital artists and clients can sometimes tell where you got them from. So here I'm starting to add in some architecture and ruins. Just putting in a little tower right here. Trying to mirror the monolith look in the background. Just here defining some more of the background elements, the lighting, blending everything in together. Here, speaking of pictures I've taken, this is a picture I took in Rome. That I have an obelisk that I'm now blending into the monolith to give it like some runes and more of a magical type feel, and also define the shading and lighting. Tried making it look more a little bit like a gateway, but I felt like the lighting didn't really work for that. So I started reworking the monoliths again. And then just working on the lighting for that. Then I decided that I didn't really like how they looked. So I did some changes and sort of made them a little bit lower, readjusted the lighting, and then I started working on some other parts of the piece because I wanted to focus on other parts. I switch up working on different parts of the piece while I'm working so I don't get bored and don't feel like I'm forcing anything. So here I'm adding some more architecture and ruins. I actually found that the architecture and ruins sort of detracted from the focus of the piece. So I ended up actually removing them. Here, that's just threw in some pictures from the Amalfi Coast, give it a like ruinous town type look. Then I'm just adjusting the foreground elements, and then adding some atmospheric fog, so the piece has more depth and focus. So here I start working on the monoliths again. I make them more symmetrical. One of them, before they were a little bit crooked, and I wanted to have them look a little bit more straight, and that way they had more focus on that versus the rest of the more organic surrounding scenes. So here I am just detailing. I add some lighting using the overlay brush. Then I take the overlay brush I play around some textures on the monoliths. Decided I didn't like the steel look, so I added something more rocky. Blended it in. Here I'm adjusting the lighting and composition using the overlay, the layer set to overlay. and then a soft brush. So make the foregrounds darker, define the lighting. Merge everything down into one layer again. So here I add in some more atmospheric fog and some waterfalls, because I know how much Matthew likes waterfalls in artwork, so I have to have some waterfalls in there. Just blending it in. The lighting looked really good with the waterfalls as well, so really added some more depth and focus. So here I'm adding in a hooded figure to give the piece some more perspective. Just a basic wizard looking guy with a staff walking through this beautiful landscape. Give him a shadow. Add some more waterfalls. Always gotta have more waterfalls. Just blending it in. Just the lighting on it. And I'm adding some birds, give it more perspective. Defining the lighting in the sky a little bit more. I then put in a gradient layer set to multiply to give the piece more focus on the lighting and the monoliths. So here this is the post-processing phase. I add several color adjustment layers and lighting adjustment layers. They help bring out the colors and the focus. I can also play around with different moods and color schemes. I want to give the piece a more Old Masters type feel, so I bring out the golden tones and give the piece more contrast. So just lots of adjustments. Then make it a little brighter, throw in my signature, and there you go. There's the piece. So there's some insights in my process into making artwork. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and are inspired to make some of your own artwork, or to maybe take some of these techniques and apply it to your own work. Thank you.